friends, welcome to or welcome back to the channel Jane Reads. My name is Jeanette, and today I am going to share favorite books from favorite authors. So for my Christian fiction bingo for 2026, one of my April prompts is a book from your favorite genre. And because I don't know what your favorite genre is, and it might not be the same as mine, I can't do a recommendations video for your favorite genre. So I thought I would do multiple genres with favorite authors from each genre that I read and what my favorite book or books or series from them is. I have tried to limit it to one book, possibly two books, because I couldn't limit it to one book, or one book and one series that I love from them because it was too hard to break it down. So I have 3 to 4 authors in each genre that I read, except for one genre, I only have one author. Let's get right into it. Now, I have a stack of books here, but I don't own all the books I'm going to talk about. And because I have a large stack of books, I am going to talk very, very briefly about these books and hopefully, and hope to encourage you or intrigue you enough to give the book a try. So for contemporary romance, the first author I'm going to mention is Becky Wade. My favorite book by her is Meant to Be Mine, which is book 2 from the Porter family series. Now, this series is a 4-book series. I only own book 1, which is Undeniably Yours. Book 2 is Meant to Be Mine. Book 3 is A Love Like Ours. And book 4 is Her One and Only. And each book follows one of the Porter siblings, 3 boys and 1 girl. So book 2, we follow Ty Porter and Cecilia, who get married in a rush ceremony in Vegas. And then the next morning, they never see each other again. Now they reunite a number of years later, and they have to deal with the consequences of that and what's gonna happen. I was so invested in this book and I really enjoyed it. I do recommend reading the series in order because it follows each sibling and you really get to know the family. You see the siblings interact in each book. The other 3 books were all 4 stars for me, just book 2 was a 5-star book. So in book 1, you meet Meg and Bo Porter. And it is a ranch setting, so that's what I really liked. Okay, the second author for contemporary romance is Susan May Warren. And my favorite book is also a book 2 of a series, and that is It Had to Be You from the Christensen family series. This is Eden and Jake's story, who are really enemies to lovers, and I absolutely loved the way this one was done. I think you really should read book 1 before you dive into book 2, but I don't think you have to. It provides you a little bit of background, especially about Eden, who is one of the Christensen. Again, the 6 books in this series, each book follows one of the Christensen siblings. Okay, the third author is Courtney Walsh. And my favorite book is Is It Any Wonder? It is part of the Nantucket Love Story series. It is considered book 2 of the series. However, this is not a series that interacts with each other at all. They just have the same setting. In this one, we are following 2 characters, a male and a female, who grew up together, spending summers in Nantucket for a number of years. And they made a promise to each other that they would meet back at a certain place on July 30th, one of those 2, on their 30th birthday, no matter what was going on in their lives. They grew up together, but then, both of their families were really good friends. But after the tragic death of one of the fathers, the families went their separate ways and they haven't seen each other. So they're unsure if the other one is going to show up at this agreed time and place, but they decide to take the risk anyways. And we find out what's happened throughout the years and we see a reconciliation happen. I absolutely loved this story. Okay, fourth author, and my last author for contemporary romance is Irene Hannon. Now, really for contemporary romance, what I've read from her is the Hope Harbor series. This is another series that is set in the same community and does have some community members overlap, and you see couples from past books show up, but the main characters are usually new characters to town or to the series. This one is the one exception, but it does not matter because you don't need to know her from previous books to enjoy this story. And the one I'm going to mention is Sunrise Reef. This is book 11 and follows Bryn. I want to say Bree, but it's Bryn Ryan, who is a barista at the local coffee shop. So you've seen her appear when characters go to the coffee shop, but that's really what you know about her, that she works at the coffee shop. You don't know really anything else about her. This one, you really get to know her. And then you meet Noah, who comes to town to check in on his father. And Bryn and Noah have a really entertaining first meeting. And then we have this elderly father figure, well, father for Noah, but who also takes Bryn under his wing and really like befriends her and stuff. I just absolutely loved the interaction of these characters, and the romance really developed nicely. Like, I highly recommend this one. Okay, moving into dual timeline stories. I absolutely love following two different timelines and seeing how they're going to intersect. Sometimes they're characters from like completely different characters, and sometimes you're just getting flashbacks from a character. And so the first one, probably not going to be a surprise when I tell you who the author is, what book I'm recommending. And that is Amanda Cox. Have you guessed? If you've watched my channel for a bit, for the last year or so, you probably know what book I'm going to say. That is The Edge of Belonging. This is a standalone, and it is set 19... Did I write it down? No, I did not. The back just... Okay, 1994, and then 24 years earlier. Editing Jeanette popping in to say, apparently I need to reread this book because I got the timelines wrong when I talk about it in the next clip. So it is 1994 and 24 years later, not earlier, later. So Harvey is from 1994, and then the baby that is now a young adult, it is 2024. Okay, now we'll go to the clip where I talk about it. Just know that my timeline is wrong. So in the past timeline, we are following Harvey, who is a homeless man who finds a baby abandoned and takes care of that baby and begins to really look after that baby, even though his situation is not great. Then in the 1994 timeline, we see where that baby is now, what is going on in their life. And so we start to learn things. So we're getting the 1994, we have the present day as they're realizing more about their background. And then the 24 years earlier with Harvey, we're seeing that background happen and come to life. And how do the two merge? I was so moved by this book, and Harvey is like so sweet, so great, humble guy. Like I absolutely loved him. The next book author is Michelle Shocklee. And my favorite book to date is the first book I read by her, and that is All We Thought We Knew. It is another standalone book, 1969, I think, and present day, I want to say. So it's around the Vietnam War and then moving into the future. And we are following a German immigrant who is studying in New York, but then gets arrested and gets taken to kind of a work farm area in Tennessee, all because he's German. It's got nothing to do with any suspicious, just because of where he comes from. He strikes up a friendship with a local girl from Tennessee, and they begin writing. So we have letters exchanged between them. And then in the present day timeline, we are following, what is her name? A female character whose mother is really, really sick. And she recently lost her brother in the Vietnam War. No. Wait. Now I think I have the wrong years. Thought we knew. I'm like, I think it's World War II and Vietnam. Let me double check this. Yes, it is World War II and Vietnam. I'm like, that didn't sound right. So 1942 and 1969. So she has recently lost her brother in the Vietnam War and is very upset about that and dealing with all that. And now that her mom's sick, she has to deal with all that. And then she starts discovering these letters and doesn't know the connection. And so we could just follow that and get to know these characters. And I was so invested in the story, so invested. And after I read this book, I added the rest of her books to my want to read list. And I've read 2 others since. The third author does not only write dual timeline, but this book I'm mentioning is dual timeline. That's why I put her in this category. And that is Rachel Hauck. And my favorite book is The Wedding Chapel. So this is again set in Tennessee, and it is 1950s, I want to say. 1948, and then present day, at the time of writing this book, right? So the book was released 2015. And so we are following Taylor. Is that her name? That's her name. Yes. We are following Taylor, who is newlywed and a photographer, and she gets assigned this job in Harts Bend, Tennessee, and to interview Jimmy, who built this wedding chapel back in the late 1948, 1950s, around that time period. And Jimmy is a football coach now, quite a bit older than he was back then. And so then we get flashbacks to the 1948 timeline and find out what was happening in Jimmy's life, what encouraged him to build this wedding chapel. And then we're also seeing Taylor and her husband trying to figure out, move forward in their newly married life, and they're trying to go over all the bumps of that first living together and figuring all that out, right? Because their life has changed. And I was so invested in this story. I loved Jimmy and getting to know his story and seeing. I have read this book 3 times and I have loved it every single time. Okay, moving into legal fiction. Now, I have read a few authors from legal fiction, but the one that stands out to me that I would consider my favorite author is Robert Whitlow. And I could not decide on one book. I have to mention 2 here. And the first one is Trial and Error. So in this one, we have a small town lawyer has been searching for his daughter for 18 years. Now another young woman is missing, and he's determined to find them both, no matter the cost. So we are following Buddy Smith, who was separated from his daughter a number of years ago, and now his law firm really specializes in reuniting kidnapped children or abducted children by a spouse. Does that make sense? When like the parents are going through custody battles and one parent takes off with the kid and he is trying to like stop that from happening, basically. And then we get to know there's a female character in this one who is such a strong Christian, and we see her writing in her prayer journal and talking to people about her faith and really assisting Buddy in any way she can. There is another female involved, and you don't know which female Buddy is going to end up with in the end, but it's not a huge romance story. There's a little bit of it there, but it is not the focus at all. Really, it was helping the parents and the kids reconnect, and can Buddy find closure and answers, and the way it all kind of weave together. I absolutely love this. The second one is Relative Justice, which is also a standalone, and it says, for the attorneys at Cobb & Cobb, the pursuit of justice is about more than legal expertise. It's a family matter. So in this one, we've got a father and a son who are working at a law firm. Then we have a daughter-in-law who is also a lawyer, but she's working at a different law firm, like in a different city. And when the father gets sick, she agrees to come back to town and help out her brother-in-law keep the law firm going. They get involved in a legal battle with a patent case. So there was a lot of science stuff in this, but it did not go over my head at all. And I was so invested in the characters and the way like the family members work together and encourage each other. And we see somebody come to Christ through this and through the sharing of characters. I loved it. Okay, moving into historical fiction. So the first book I thought of, so I had to mention this author, is Carrie Turansky. And my favorite book is No Ocean Too Wide. I just absolutely loved this book when I read it, and I have reread it since, and I still enjoyed it just as much. So this is this is book one of the McAllister family. It is a duology, but you really could just read it by itself. It's just you want to know what happens to the rest of the family, so you have to read book two, basically. That's the way I felt anyways. But what I absolutely loved about this book is I learned about a moment in history that I didn't really know much about. And the back blurb tells you a bit about that history, not about the book. But between the years of 1869 and 1939, more than 100,000 impoverished British children were sent across the ocean to Canada with the promise of a better life. Those who took them in to work as farm laborers or household servants were told the children were orphans. But was that the truth? So we are following Laura, who is the oldest sibling, and her three younger siblings. Laura has gone off to work to make money for the family, so she is living somewhere else, working as a maid. The mother is home with the three children. They have lost their father a number of years ago. And the mother gets sick, and the three children end up at an orphanage, and they end up getting sent to Canada. They're not orphans. Their mother is just sick at the time and couldn't care for them at this moment. And when Laura finds out they've been sent to Canada, she comes across to Canada to try to find them. So we are following Laura's journey, but we are also following the three children. Three children? Wait, is it three? Yes, it is. Wow. We are following the three children's perspective and how like they get separated in Canada and what is going to happen, and can this family be reunited? I was so hooked. Okay, the next author is Karen Witemeyer. And again, I could not pick just one book. And these are both part of a series. They're both book 2 of a series, but you do not need to read the series in order to enjoy these books. In fact, the first book was the first book that I had read by Karen Witemeyer. I never read book 1 of the series, and I did not feel lost at all because it gave enough information about the town and what book 1 would have introduced. I've gone back and read book 1, but no. So that book is Hard on the Line. This is book 2 of the Ladies of Harper Station series, and we are following 2 telegraph operators who fall in love over the line, basically, but they do end up meeting in person. Grace, something happens when they're talking on the line, and it appears that Grace is in trouble. Amos decides to come to town to try to help, not knowing that there are like very, very few men in town. And he sticks out like a sore thumb. And is he the one threatening Grace? The ladies of the community aren't really sure. And I loved this. And I love that Amos was not your typical brawny, strong cowboy type in Texas. I mean, the book is set in Texas. But Amos is like bookish and rides a bicycle instead of a horse. And I just loved his attitude, his strength, and what he did to help Grace. The next one is a marriage convenience story, and that is More Than Words Can Say. It is a book 2 of the Patchwork Family series. In this one, we are following Abigail and Zach. We do meet Zach in book 1, so you get a little bit more of his background from book 1, but you do not need to know that really. So in this one, Abigail has inherited her family bakery after her dad passes away. Her and her sister are running it. The town council comes and says that they need a man's name on the deed, otherwise she's going to have to sell and close. And Abigail's like, what? So Abigail is trying to find a man to put the name on the deed. She ends up marrying Zach, and the agreement that it's in name only, well, that doesn't go exactly as planned. They end up having feelings for each other, and we watch that develop. And it's such a sweet, sweet story. I just loved it. Another favorite author for historical is Sarah Sundin. And this one, again, I could not pick just one book, but I will start with the standalone to make it easier on you. And that is Until Leaves Fall in Paris. This is World War II fiction set in Paris, maybe? Yes. And we are following, what is her name? Lucy, who is an American ballerina, right? Yes. Yeah. An American ballerina staying above a bookstore. She offers to take over the bookstore when the war starts because the bookstore owners are Jewish and they are leaving. She ends up starting to work for the resistance through the bookstore. She meets a guy and his little daughter who are also American, working overseas. And a friendship blooms. They're not really sure to trust each other at the beginning. And we just watch kind of how all that develops. And I just loved, I was so invested in what was going on. And the next one I'm going to mention is a series. I had to mention a series because I've loved her series. And that is The Sunrise at Normandy. And in this one, we are following 3 brothers who have a major fight at the beginning of book 1. And then they all end up in different forms of service in World War II. and it's unsure if they will be able to reunite before, like, if they will be able to reunite and rectify because they're serving in the war. And we see each of them fall in love. So book 1 is The Sea Before Us. Book 2 is The Sky Above Us. And book 3 is The Land Beneath Us. Book 3 is A Marriage of Convenience story. And book 2, we are following one of the brothers that I did not like from book 1. But as I got to know him in book 2, I fell in love with him. I so did not expect to like him as much as I did. So for me, book 1 was 4 stars. Book 2 was 5 stars. And book 3 was 5 stars. So I highly encourage this series and reading it in order because it does follow kind of the 3 brothers. You find out what happened between them in book 1 and then how do they rectify that, and can they reconnect and reunite on, what's the other word I want to say? Can they find forgiveness and move forward? Reconciliation, that's the word I wanted. So yeah. And the last historical fiction author is Rachel Fordham. Now I did narrow this down to 1 book, and that is The Letter Tree. This one is like a Romeo and Juliet type story with letters being exchanged, so kind of a You Got Mail theme as well. It is set in Buffalo, New York in 1917, and we are following 2 people who grew up together, and that because their fathers were business partners. Something happened to that partnership and they both started their own factories, and they were not allowed, the kids were not allowed to speak to each other. And they started having a pen pal with somebody, but they didn't know who it was. They discovered that it's the other person. And how does that happen? There is also this tree where they exchange the letters is at the zoo. So the zoo plays a part of this story, and I loved it. I was so invested in the characters. And the last genre is romantic suspense. You didn't think I wasn't going to do suspense, right? Okay, so the first author I'm going to mention is Lynette Eason, obviously. I am sad to say that I do not own the books I'm going to tell you about, though. I have them on my Kindle. And the first book is Too Close to Home. This is book 1 of the Women of Justice series. This book is actually the book that introduced me to Lynette Eason. So I think that's part of the reason it holds such a special place in my heart, because I read so many of her books since. I fell in love with her through this book. And we are following 2 characters, a police detective who has a teenage daughter and somebody else who works in the field. Why can I not think of what her role is at this point in time? Doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And they are assigned a case of some runaway girls. One of the runaway girls, a body has shown up. It turns out that she's been pregnant at some point. And so maybe it's not just simple runaway girls. And as per the title, it is hitting too close to home because the police detective has a teenage daughter around the same age as these multiple runaways. And I was so invested in this story. The next series I'm going to mention is the Elite Guardians series. This is a 4-book series that follows female bodyguards. And I just absolutely loved the strength of these women, the way they work together. It's like a agency that they run, and it was just so unique. The one thing, there are snakes that appear in one of the books. I can't tell you which book because I don't remember offhand. I just remember being so creeped out when I read it. But I'm like, I still absolutely loved this series. So book 1 is Always Watching. Book 2 is Without Warning. Book 3 is Moving Target. And book 4 is Chasing Secrets. The next author is Lynn H. Blackburn. And my favorite book by her is book 2 of the Dive Team series, and that is In Too Deep. And in this one, we are following Adam, who is a member of the dive team, and Sabrina, who is a computer forensic computer forensic something. It doesn't say what her title is exactly, but she works on computers. She's a big geek, very, very smart. And Adam comes from a very wealthy family, but he wants to work his way and has become a member of the police and the dive team. And I loved him. But really, I would recommend the whole series. I just absolutely loved this series. This is the series that introduced me to Lynn Blackburn. So book 1 is Beneath the Surface. Book 2 is In Too Deep. And book 3 is One Final Breath. And we are following a group of co-workers who come together and others that get involved in the mysteries that are going on. And we see them all make appearances in all 3 books and really get to see this group and the friendship and the way they work together and support each other. Absolutely loved it. All 3 books were 5 stars for me. Okay, and then we have Terri Blackstock. And I've picked 1 series and 1 standalone. So for the series, and then I hold up the standalone. For the standalone, Aftermath. This is following a bombing that happens at a concert, and then bomb materials are found in somebody's trunk, and they are being framed. But why? Who is framing them? Then we are following one of the attendees of the concert who has escaped, but their friends did not, and the aftermath of dealing with that. I was so invested in this story. And then the series is the If I Run series. So book 1 is If I Run, book 2 is If I Live, and book 3 is... No, it's not. Let's try that again. Book 1 is If I Run. Book 2 is If I'm Found. And book 3 is If I Live. And in this one, this is one that really must be read in order because you are following Casey in book 1, who finds her best friend dead in the apartment. And then she goes on the run because she assumes the police are going to try to pin this murder on her. And she goes on the run and tries to solve the murder. But as she goes on the run, she also ends up across other mysteries and gets involved in other things and trying to help people in horrible situations when she's already in a horrible situation herself. Like her strength of character, her personality and charitiness, that doesn't make sense. Her willingness to help others, absolutely loved. Then we're following Dylan, who is a private investigator who's being hired by the family to try to find Casey and bring her home. And he's being led to believe that Casey is guilty. And as he's investigating, is she guilty or not? Can they solve who the murderer was? Then we have Danny Petrie. And my favorite book is One Wrong Move, which is book 1 of the Jeopardy Falls series. We are following Christian and Andy, who are both pulled in to work for this art gallery and try to solve a crime that has happened. Christian works for a security firm who provided security for the art gallery. Andy works for the FBI. And they have to work together to try to figure out what happened. And I was so hooked on this story. Okay, and the last author I'm going to mention again, I mentioned her earlier, but this is in the suspense category, and that is Irene Hannon. And my favorite book is Point of Danger, which is book 1 from the Undaunted Courage series. And this one, we are following Eve, who is a radio show host, and she gets left a bomb at her house. And trying to figure out why is somebody targeting her and what's going on. We do get the villain's perspective in this, but we don't know who the villain is. It's a mystery pretty much the whole way through. We just are seeing their perspective, but it's not revealed who they are. And when it was revealed, I was like, oh my gosh, really? I was so hooked. Then book 2 of the series is Labyrinth of Lies, and book 3 is Body of Evidence. So the series is following 3 sisters. So while the storyline for the mystery plot does not carry over, the sisters do make appearances in each one. So I would recommend reading this in order. I gave book 1 5 stars, and I gave book 3 5 stars. I gave book 2 4 stars. But yeah, I was so hooked throughout this series. This is definitely my favorite series by her. Okay, that was a lot longer than I planned it to be. I'm sorry. And so for me, for a favorite genre, I think what I'm going to do is probably pick a historical suspense book for me to read for the month of April, because I absolutely love historical and I absolutely love suspense. So I think that just fits, right, to tie the two together. And the 3 options I have are The Pink Bonnet by Liz Tolsama, which is part of the True Colors series. I have The Scarlet Letter by Rachel Scott McDaniel, which is part of the Heroines of World War II series. And I have Murder on the Moor by Juliana Deering, which is the next book I need to read in the Drew Farthering mystery series. So these are the 3 possibilities for me, but I haven't narrowed it down to one. You'll have to stay tuned for my April TBR game to see what I do plan on reading in April. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.